So, free trade was started by Adam Smith at the East India Company. And free trade actually is piracy, maritime law. So King George III, he brought the Venetian system from Venetia to Great Britain. And it was the black nobility that was taking over the Vatican 1870. And the successors of the East India Company are now reigning USA, and they finance wars. The Committee of 300 participants, they, because of dealing with heroin in Benares, now own more than the Rockefellers, etc., or Ford, General Motors in 1917. And in this Committee of 300, all have the same vote and they reign the world. And they have made China dependent with tea clubs. And free trade was being given by Great Britain to USA. Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley have been all against free trade, and the British MI6 have executed Kennedy that for, even though now we know it's not true because of Miles Mattis. So that's these tidbits that get thrown in to these true histories, or then they still don't know, the investigators of these hoaxes. The Israeli British foreign minister was the one that was executing Lincoln, here it says. That's probably not true either. And the Communist Manifest was created in 1884. The Secretary of State since 1919 was always being advised by the Committee of 300. Carter and Clinton were both going through the Tavistock MK Ultra sessions, and overnational organizations don't have to abide to any law. Thatcher has been saying to Bush to start the Gulf War as he was hesitating. And the Committee of 300 is the highest hierarchy step. Then there are the Round Table, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Royal Institute on for International Affairs. And in 1934, and then the Club of Rome is the one that is actually the producer. The others are just behind the desk entities, think tanks. And in 1934, 300 people were deciding about the world, and nothing can halt them, said Walter Rathenau. And he should know, because he was the financial supervisor of the German Kaiser, and of the Rothschilds. And this shadow government's aim is the New World Government, the New World Order. And with King George III, this had begun with 50 states at that time. And it's a dictatorship through the Committee of the 300 because they have complete control because of their wealth, the banks and the insurances they know. It's coming from Venetia's black nobility, that owned the East India Company. So, and the parties they know and all the financial conglomerates are in their hands in every country. And the Club of Rome was initially done to be ruining USA through its steel industry. Lord Bertrand Russell of the Committee of 300 wrote, the half of world population is too much, and until 2050 it has to vanish. And Global 2000, this program is called. The middle class in USA should be destroyed first because these are the first to fight against any changes by the Committee of 300 and others like the government. And these long-time contracts could afford products that were produced in USA, the middle class. Nowadays, not anymore. 1970, 5,000 ships were produced in USA. 2016, 200 ships. So USA has vanished, you could say, isn't existing anymore. The middle class has gone. Steel industry was destroyed by free trade agreements, and Global 2000 made AIDS in Nigeria first, and it was distributed through missionary sites because the ill would come with a broken arm in the morning and were dead by the evening. And in Alabama, in Harvard, this chemical weapon was developed. AIDS. Africa, Brazil, smallpox vaccines through the World Health Organizations were infiltrated with AIDS to kill people there. AIDS of the animal is a virus that was brought over to the humans first and was creating dementia. Cholera had killed India, and the Black Plague and the Indian reservates population control mass genocide plan was done by alcohol and killing. And nowadays maybe herbs and certain kinds of sugar and some microwave frequency is shielding the people from the Committee of 300 that never die. So the Royal Britain yacht, the Queen of England, has sometimes been in the harbor of Venetia, when the banksters meet, the financial crisis in general always follows when there has been a meeting on her ship. 1888, the pagan society decided that the constitution in USA had to go and the middle class has to go. So Capitol Hill created by MI6 the Mossad, and Woodrow Wilson took advice from wise men. Like, he was not deciding himself. Truman, he forbid MacArthur because the Royal Institute of International Affairs has said so, that the Korean soldiers, 50,000, had to die. And Kennedy was killed by the MI6 under William Stevenson, and 48% of the shoes in USA nowadays are imported, and 200,000 people in USA are unemployed. That's the trade war. So they kill people in India and as well Brazil, Africa we had, but USA as well. Trade war. The GATT seems to do the same, to make the people poor. So it's a 26,000 pages document, and that one shall be discussed in 2 days. That's not possible. In 1965, Immigration Act in USA of the socialists has been followed by a massive immigration, and 2060, 39% of the civilians in USA shall be Americans. Now they are doing it in Europe too. And the null abortion also does reduce population. That's what they want, to reduce us. So let's go back a little bit to Loyola once more, since this is our last paper. The Society of Jesuits, 1550 created. They own the Vatican nowadays, which is the Knights of Malta, its military power, and they're located at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, and vis-a-vis is the Council on Foreign Relations in the Rockefeller Building, where also is the Time Life magazine located, and they reign in Washington. And they're against the Reformation, against the Protestants and against the Palestinians, but in the end they just invented all these fields of war to create chaos and then take over. And here it says that all these, like Francisco Franco, Benito Mussolini, Tito, Perón, Salazar, and Hitler, Stalin, Ceausescu, Mao Zedong, Nga Dinh Diem, and Honecker were all reigned by this Council on Foreign Relations. Jean-Bertrand Aristide, Noriega, Nelson Mandela, Saddam Hussein and Fidel Castro, they belong to the House of Stuart in Great Britain. And Napoleon's Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. And power is universal power, and when something is done in the interest of the Society of the Jesuits, you get a reward, even if it's killing.